Hello. In this video, let's discuss about lambda expression in C++. Okay, what is lambda expression? So lambda expression is nothing but it is an anonymous function which has no name. So we don't want to mention the name in the lambda expression. And it was introduced in C++ 11. If you have above version, say above C++ 11, you can access the lambda expression in your system. So as I mentioned that you don't want to mention in the name in lambda expression. And it is very useful for small functions. Consider you have one function which take only two lines, so you don't want to create any another function with the name. So it's very helpful for small functions, but it is not feasible to write a large function using lambda expression. It is also not recommended. Okay, let's the return type of lambda expression is optional one. You don't want to mention the return type in lambda expression, but it is good practice to mention the return type in lambda expression. So I will tell that in later part how we can mention the return type in lambda expression. So let's talk about the syntax. So lambda expression has four major parts. First one is capture class, which is enclosed within square brackets. And next is parameter. Parameter is closed with the functional brackets. Next is return type. So and another thing is block your code block. So which is enclosed within the curly braces. So we see about everything in more detailed way. So first one is capture class. So capture class is used to access the element which are present outside of our function. Consider there is a one variable which is present outside of your scope of your function. So if you want to access the element, you can use this capture class uh, to access the elements. There are two ways to access the elements using capture class. First way is capture by reference, and next one is capture by value. So in capture by reference, you are going to access the elements by reference, which means if you change anything within the function, it also reflect in the original value. But if you are using the capture by value method, if you change anything within this function, it will not reflect in the outside of the function. So I will teach this about in later part. You can able to understand more better way. Okay, and we can also use by mixing both of them, which means you can use the capture by reference also and capture by value in the same lambda expression. So I also talk about in later part about this. Next is parameters. So it's similar to how we are passing the parameter into our normal functions, like the same way integer a comma character something like that is example one. The same way we are going to pass the parameter into lambda expression. The next is return type. I already said that return type is not compulsory, but it is good practice to put that. In some case, it is necessary to put the return type. So let's see the example. If you want to return the consider an example. If now you want to return the ASCII value from the function, but now compiler what will do that if you return it will return the character, because it will automatically detect that you are going to return the character. So it will think that's okay. Now I want to the return type is character, but you want to ask value only. So in this type in this time you want to put the return type value. So these are some of the case only. Most of the time, 99% of the time, you don't want to put the return type because compiler automatically detect the return types. Sometimes you may want to give the return type. So based on the situation, you can give the return type. So let's see the example. So consider this example. So in this example, I created one lambda expression which is return the sum of the two values. So I assign this a lambda expression into one variable which called sum. We can assign this lambda expression to a variables. This data type is function data type. This function data type syntax is very little bit longer. So to avoid that, I use auto. I will also explain this in later part how we can declare the function data type. So let's see that. So in this function, you can see that I take two parameters and within the capture class and nothing given because I'm not going to capture anything outside the function. Next is arrow symbol. I said that it's option one. Now you don't want to specify that and the return type. After that, within the curly braces, I write the main body of our function. And I calling this function in this out statement and 12 comma 15. This will return the sum of the two values is 27. So let's see the second example. So you can see that the same example, but instead of returning the value, I'm going to assign this value into one variable. This variable is present outside of our function, but still we can access that. How we can access that? We are accessing these elements by references. So that's the reason that because we are accessing this by reference, which means if any change happen to the within the function, it's also referred to the original value. So if you print out that, it will be 27. But if you, instead of giving ampersand, if you give the equal symbol, it will not behave like that. It will, if you change it, the total equal to a plus b means it will change 27 within the function only. uh, After exit the function, the total value becomes 0 because both are not same. Okay, you try by yourself, you can understand this concept. Next, so one of the use cases, comparator. Okay, most of the time you will use this in within the comparator. Comparator, what is the comparator means? It is used to compare two values. Most of the time you are using this comparator in many of the functions like sort and periodic or something like that. So in that time, you this um, lambda expression is more useful. Consider there is a one array. So in this example, there is one string array is present. You want to sort this array based on this size, not by lexicographical order. So how we can sort that? Normally, if you sort this array by by normal sort method, it will sort in lexicographical order. So to override that, you want to specify the custom comparator. So how we can specify the custom comparator? Here I'm going to the sort syntax is, first we want to first array dot begin, next array dot end, so similar one. Next is our comparator function. You can also give the function in another create a one function and give the name of that. Instead of that, because it is only you are going to use this function only one time. So instead of why you want to write the function means you want to access the element repeatedly. So if you are going if you're not going to access the function repeatedly, then why you want to give the separate name for that and separate line for that? So to avoid that, you can directly put that into this line, so it is more readable and more easy to debug, something like that. So here it takes two parameters, string ampersand a and string ampersand b, and it is going to return the, we are going to compare this by size. So we are going to return the a dot size less than b dot size. It's going to return boolean value. Let's you can search about the sort method and comparator about in internet. Otherwise, I also made it. I will also create another video about that in later. So after that, sorting the array, it will, if we print the value, it will, the array is sorted in the basis of the size. Okay, it's one of the very useful case when we are going to use the lambda expression. So let's talk about recursion. So recursion in lambda expression. So recursion in lambda expression is not recommended one. You can do the recursion, but it's not recommended one, and it's also not normal way. Okay, consider. So so why it's not easy to do recursion in lambda expression? Let's see the case. So here I declare one lambda expression which is going to find the factorial of the number, and I assign this into one variable called fact. Okay, I'm going to call this method by using the variable fact. So consider, so imagine that the fact is this parameter is not given. So what will happen? So consider this code will come here, then you try to call this method again, but for this within the body, it has no knowledge about what is fact, because it, imagine that this parameter is not given, so it cannot access this method. So to avoid this, we want to pass the this variable as a parameter to the function. So I receive this parameter as a reference, then it can identify, okay, this is another function, so I'm going to call this function only. So there is a one function which is present out there like fact, so I'm going to call this. So if you want to do recursion in a lambda expression, you want to pass the function as a parameter. So it's the one of the way to do recursion, but it's not recommended. You do always avoid to use recursion in lambda expression. If you want to use recursion, use the normal way of functioning. Okay, let's. So another way is you can use this. If you don't want to pass the parameter, you can use this method. So here, instead of using an auto variable, I using the function keyword. Function, the syntax for this function, next is the what is it within the angular bracket, what is the return type. Here the return type is integer, and within this I'm going to open the functional bracket. Within that, I'm going to give the data type of parameters. Here the parameter is integer, because I'm going to only take the ns parameter, which is integer. Here, instead of passing as a parameter, I'm going to use the capture class property. So using this capture class property, I'm going to capture this variable by reference. So fact. So if now this function has the access to now this within the body, it knows about what is fact, so you can easily call that. Okay, this is another method. So that's all about lambda expression. There are many concepts related to lambda expression. You can also search in internet. If you have any doubt in regarding lambda expression, kindly put it into the comment section. And if you have any other suggestion, any topic you want to discuss, let's that also put into the comment section. Thank you.